The last remnants of the Erythran fleet drifted in orbit around a dying star, its crimson glow casting long shadows over their battered ships. The air in the flagship's command bridge was thick with tension, a heavy silence broken only by the occasional static of distant transmissions and the steady beep of warning alarms. Fleet Commander Lisar Venai stared at the holomap, her mandibles twitching involuntarily. The enemy fleet was closing in fast. There were no reinforcements coming. They had already sent countless distress calls into the void, but none had returned, with promises of salvation. The ruthless Solak Dominion, a warlike empire known across half the quadrant for their merciless conquests, was tightening its noose. "We're outnumbered nearly 3-1, Lysar muttered, voice hoarse from days without rest. Her antennae drooped in exhaustion. Her second-in-command, Joran Tal, adjusted his comlink nervously. "Morale is breaking. Some crews are already preparing to abandon their posts. The supply runs are failing. We cannot hold much longer." Lisar's eyes burned with desperation. This fleet was not just a group of ships, it was a last stand for countless worlds threatened with extinction. If the Dominion won here, the star system would fall, and with it, hope. "Status on the forward shields?" she demanded. "Down to 45%, Commander," reported the engineer, fingers flying over his controls. "Repairs aren't keeping up with the barrage." From the viewport, the enemy armada was a terrifying sight. Vast, black warships, their hulls adorned with the jagged red insignia of the Solak. Their fighters swarmed like locusts, eager to devour what remained of the fragile alliance. "Enemy fighters breaking formation at Sector 5, a young pilot called out, requesting permission to engage. "Hold position," Lysar ordered sharply. "We need a coordinated defense. We cannot afford reckless losses." Suddenly, an unexpected ping echoed through the bridge, drawing everyone's attention. Sensors had detected something, far beyond the star's gravitational pull at the very edge of their detection range. "A contact," the sensor officer said, eyes wide. "Faint. Moving fast. Too fast for any known vessel in this sector." Lisar leaned forward. "A patrol? A scout? Could it be one of ours?" Joran shook his head. "No fleet in this region has anything that matches this signature. It's almost unnatural." The captain's calm flickered to life. "Commander, you should see this," the sensor officer urged. On the main display, a tiny blip shimmered erratically, a lone vessel streaking across the void like a comet. The fleet held its breath, the tension snapping taut. Then the unexpected happened. A transmission burst through the static. It was broken and fragmented, but unmistakably a voice, deep, steady, speaking a language none aboard had heard before. Still, the tone was unmistakably human. "Hold. Fast. Help. Coming." The words repeated once, twice before cutting out. The bridge fell silent. Lysar exchanged a glance with Joran. Could it be a trick? A Dominion psyop? "Impossible to tell," Joran said. "But the frequency is encrypted in a way we've never encountered. Definitely not Dominion tech." A murmur spread among the officers. Rumors had circulated of an ancient human fleet lost to the stars generations ago. Legends whispered that humanity had vanished from known space, leaving only myths behind. Some believed they never existed outside old records. Now, against all odds, a sign from the abyss. "Should we respond?" the communications officer asked hesitantly. Lysar's heart hammered. "Yes, send a hailing signal. Identify ourselves as allies in need." The message was brief, cautious. Erythran fleet, desperate and surrounded. "Are you friend or foe?" For long moments, only static replied. Then the voice came again, clearer this time, stronger. "We are human. We fight to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Stand ready. We arrive." The enemy fleet surged, closing the distance as if sensing weakness. Joran cursed. "Commander, this might be a trap. The Dominion could be luring us into a kill zone." But Lysar's gaze was fixed on the blip growing larger on the sensors, the faint glimmer of hope in the endless void. "No, this is something else." Suddenly, the dark horizon of space split with brilliant light as a colossal warship emerged from the void, its hull gleaming with unfamiliar symbols and technology far beyond anything the Erythrans had ever seen. The human ship roared with engines pulsing, charging headlong into the enemy lines. Lasar stood, voice ringing with renewed strength. All units, prepare for battle. Today we fight not for survival alone, but for hope. The battle for the star system was just beginning, but the arrival of the human warship promised a new, desperate chance none dared to believe was possible. The Erythran fleet's command bridge was alive with an electric buzz. Hope and suspicion tangled together, like a storm in their minds. The alien officers exchanged uneasy glances as the strange human transmission echoed faintly in their comm systems, refusing to be silenced. The message was broken, fragmented, repeating a phrase they could barely understand. Hold. Fast. Help. Coming. Yet, even in its partial form, the voice carried a weight of promise unlike anything the fleet had heard in days. Lisar Venai paced slowly, the familiar rhythm of her steps grounding her amid the chaos. Who is this human? She muttered under her breath. If they truly exist, why now? Why here? Joran Tal, her second in command, leaned over the sensor console. Their signal cuts through Dominion jamming frequencies like a ghost. It's almost as if the message is embedded in the fabric of space itself. No one knows how it got here. Maybe that's the point, Lisar said. Maybe it's not just a call for help, maybe it's a warning. The comm officer's eyes widened suddenly. Another transmission, Commander. Incoming on an unknown frequency. The entire bridge turned toward the main screen. Static crackled before the voice came through again, calm, clear, and unmistakably human. Erythran Fleet, the voice said, steady and authoritative. Do not lose hope. We are coming from the void. Trust in our resolve. The room fell silent. The voice was alien to their ears but carried an undeniable strength. Joran frowned. We don't understand their language, yet their tone. There is no fear, only certainty. Lisar nodded slowly. And that certainty is what we need now. A low murmur spread through the officers. Some whispered that the humans might be a myth. Stories told by older generations, remnants of a forgotten age when humans supposedly ruled parts of the galaxy with unmatched courage and technology. But here, in this moment, the myth was alive. The communications officer adjusted the receiver. The message repeats on a loop, but it's encrypted. We can't decode it fully, but it's definitely not Dominion tech. This is something new. Joran's voice was sharp with skepticism. It could be a Dominion trick. They want us to lower our guard. Lisar shook her head, the faintest spark of a smile playing on her mandibles. If it is a trap, it's a bold one. But we have nothing left to lose. Prepare a broadcast to all Allied ships. Let them know help might be near. They need to hold the line. As orders buzzed through the bridge, a young pilot, Neril, approached with urgency. Commander, I'm picking up strange energy readings near the edge of sensor range. The signal is coming from a small, uncharted region of space. Lisar's eyes narrowed. A dead zone? How are they sending messages from there? Unknown, Neril replied. The energy signature fluctuates, almost like it's bending space. Bending space? Joran repeated incredulously. It defies everything we know, Neril said. If it's true, they might be using technology we can't even imagine. The weight of that realization hung heavy. If humans had mastered such technology, they were unlike any force the Erythrans or the Dominion had faced. Suddenly, the enemy fleet shifted formation, sensing something different in the airwaves. The Dominion's flagship emitted a piercing signal, attempting to jam the mysterious transmission. But the human message persisted, unwavering, impossible to silence. Lisar clenched her fists. They want to communicate, they want to help. Or, Joran warned, they want us to think that. Before more could be said, the comm officer's face paled. Commander, another signal. This one direct. A live feed. It's coming. From the void itself. On the main holo display, static gave way to an image. A glimpse of a ship unlike any the Erythrans had ever seen. Sleek, massive, its hull covered in strange markings glowing faintly blue. It floated silently in the blackness, a silent guardian waiting. The human voice returned calm and clear. Erythran fleet, this is the Dauntless. We have answered your call. Hold fast, we come for you. A chorus of disbelief rippled through the bridge. Lysar stared, heart pounding. The impossible had become real. The humans were coming, and they were no mere legends. Joran exhaled slowly, relief mixing with renewed tension. If they're here, maybe this battle isn't lost. But the Dominion will not let us escape easily, Lysar said. Their arrival may change everything, or trigger the war to escalate beyond control. As the Dauntless blinked into sensor range faint but undeniable, the fleet's battered crews prepared to hold on for one last chance. Hope had returned, but so had the stakes, and from the dark, cold void, the humans were roaring toward battle. The void beyond the dying star was suddenly torn apart by a new kind of thunder, a roar unlike anything the Erythran fleet had ever heard. It was the roar of engines firing at impossible speeds, a warship blazing through the blackness like a comet of fury and hope. The massive human vessel known as Dauntless had arrived. Its hull gleamed with strange, iridescent alloys that shimmered even in the dim light of the distant star. The ship was unlike any warship in the galaxy, sleek yet heavily armored, with angular surfaces that seemed to bend light and warp sensors. It carried no visible weapons at first glance, but the alien officers watching through their scanners could feel the latent power humming beneath its hull. Aboard the Dauntless, Captain Mara Thorne stood on the command bridge, her piercing gaze locked on the Erythran fleet's beacon. Her voice was steady, calm but carried the weight of iron resolve. Prepare for immediate engagement, she ordered. The Dominion won't expect us. Let's remind them why no one fights humans and lives to tell the tale. The bridge crew snapped to action. Engines flared, weapon systems hummed to life, and holographic displays painted the space ahead with targets and tactical overlays. Back on the Erythran flagship, Lysar Venai watched the Dauntless accelerate, slicing through enemy fighter squadrons like a blade through silk. The alien fleet's eyes were wide with a mixture of awe and disbelief. They fight differently, Lysar murmured. More aggressive, unpredictable. The human warship darted and weaved, its weapons firing bursts of pulsing energy that tore through Dominion shields and hulls with terrifying precision. Fighters tried to swarm the Dauntless, but human pilots inside the ship responded with sudden, brutal countermeasures. Unseen until triggered, machines that unleashed devastating blasts of electromagnetic pulses and plasma torpedoes. The enemy flagship reacted, unleashing volleys of missiles and energy beams, but the Dauntless slipped through the onslaught, its hull barely scratched. Target the lead fighters, Captain Thorne commanded. Take out their eyes and ears. Disrupt their formation. The human crew operated with a discipline born of endless battle experience. Every move was precise but daring, each decision a gamble that paid off with deadly efficiency. On the alien bridge, the sensor officer frowned. Captain, we're detecting unusual readings from the Dauntless's engines. They're using some form of spatial distortion, slipping through space-time to reposition rapidly. Jorantal's antenna twitched in disbelief. They're bending space itself? That's impossible. Lysar's heart pounded. It's why they came so fast. Why their signal was impossible to block. Suddenly, the enemy commander's voice boomed across the comm channels, dripping with fury and disbelief. Human scum, you dare to interfere? We will crush you and your pathetic allies. Prepare to be erased. The Dauntless answered with a pulse of bright light as it surged toward the enemy flagship. Captain Thorne's voice was ice cold. We fight because it's the right thing to do. You threaten the innocent, we will stop you. Surrender now or be destroyed. The flagship unleashed its full arsenal. Explosions blossomed in space as energy beams struck the human ship. The Dauntless rocked but held firm, its shields glowing fiercely. Divert power to forward shields, deploy countermeasures, Mara shouted. The ship shook violently, but then, with a sudden surge, the Dauntless unleashed a concentrated beam of energy that tore through the flagship's main weapons array. The enemy flagship shuddered and faltered. On the Erythran bridge, cheers erupted. They've broken their flagship's defenses. We have a chance. But Lisar knew better. This fight is far from over. The Dominion will strike back harder. Suddenly, the Dauntless initiated a rapid retreat through a nearby asteroid field, a perilous move no one else would dare. Why retreat? Joran asked. We're gaining ground. Lisar watched the sensors anxiously. That's a human move. Lure the enemy into a trap. We follow their lead. The Dominion's fighters scrambled to pursue, but the Dauntless twisted through the jagged asteroids with astonishing agility, using the terrain as a shield. Engage targeting protocols, Mara commanded. Fire the plasma nets. From the warship's underbelly, glowing tendrils of plasma energy shot out, ensnaring enemy fighters and dragging them into asteroid impacts. The battlefield erupted into chaos. Back on the Erythran bridge, Lisar felt a stirring of hope. They fight, with fury and cunning, she said softly. With courage that turns the tide. The Dauntless was more than a ship. It was a symbol, a roar from the void that declared humanity had returned, and they would not stand by while others were crushed. As the human warship carved a path through the enemy, the Solak Dominion realized they had underestimated their opponent. And the war was only just beginning. The battered Erythran fleet watched in awe as the Dauntless danced through the battlefield with relentless precision. But it wasn't just the warship's technology that captured their attention. It was the fire behind. The humans fought with a fierce stubbornness that defied logic, a refusal to yield even in the face of overwhelming odds. Commander Lisar Venai stood beside Captain Joran Tal, studying the battle reports flooding in from their scouts and fighters. They don't fight like anyone else, Joran observed. Our enemies rely on brute force and intimidation. But the humans, they use chaos, unpredictability, and sheer willpower. Lisar nodded, her mandibles twitching thoughtfully. It's as if their strength comes from something deeper than weapons or tactics. Meanwhile, aboard the Dauntless, Captain Mara Thorne convened with her senior officers in the war room. The glowing holographic map of the battlefield flickered, dotted with enemy positions, weak points, and allies in desperate straits. We're here to make sure no one falls, Mara said, voice resolute. Every system, every species out there deserves a chance. That's why we fight. Lieutenant Samir, the ship's tactical officer, leaned forward. Captain, the Erythrans have asked for volunteers for a dangerous strike team. They want to sabotage the Dominion's weapons array deep inside the enemy flagship. Mara's eyes sharpened. That's suicide for anyone else but humans. She turned to a young crew member, Aiden, standing quietly in the corner. You ready for this, Aiden? He met her gaze without hesitation. Born ready? The Erythrans were watching the humans with a mixture of fascination and hope. Aiden was one of the youngest on the Dauntless, but his courage was undeniable. The humans believed in risk-taking, not recklessness, but a calculated boldness that could turn the tide of war. Lisar studied the transmissions between the two ships. Their code is strange, she admitted. They speak in blunt terms, but their actions are precise. They trust each other and their technology without hesitation. Joran grinned, a rare moment of levity in the grim fight. And they never leave a teammate behind. Suddenly, an alert flashed on the Dauntless's tactical display. Captain, Samir reported, enemy reinforcements are arriving. A heavy cruiser is jumping into the system. Mara's expression hardened. Then, it's time to make our move. Aiden, you're leading the strike team. Infiltrate the cruiser's systems, disable their weapons, and get out. No heroics that jeopardize the mission. Aiden nodded, determination burning in his eyes. We'll make it count. As the Dauntless prepared to launch its assault, Lisar sent a message to Captain Thorne. Your crew fights with honor and bravery we've not seen in centuries. If you succeed, you will save countless lives. Trust in us as we trust in you, Mara replied swiftly. We don't just fight for ourselves. We fight because it's the right thing to do. That's what makes us human. The human strike team boarded small assault pods, sleek and silent. They launched toward the incoming cruiser, weaving through a hailstorm of enemy fire with nerves of steel. Inside the cruiser's corridors, Aiden's team moved with stealth and speed. They hacked through security systems, planted explosives, and disabled power cores with precision. Every second counted. Back on the Dauntless, Mara watched the assault unfold with clenched fists. The crew's faith in one another, their unbreakable resolve, was the greatest weapon they wielded. On the Erythran bridge, Lysar monitored the progress anxiously. "Strike team is inside the cruiser," Joran reported. "If they fail, we're facing annihilation." Minutes dragged like hours until finally, the cruiser's weapon systems blinked offline. The assault pods returned, battered but victorious. A cheer rose through the Dauntless. The humans had once again turned impossible odds in their favor. Lysar felt a surge of something she hadn't in weeks. Hope. "Humans fight not just with weapons, but with heart," she said quietly. "It's why we needed them." Joran smiled, eyes shining. "If the humans are willing to risk everything for us, then maybe we can win this war after all." As the Dauntless rejoined the fleet, its crew and their alien allies prepared for the inevitable counterattack. The Solak Dominion would not give up easily, but the humans had shown the galaxy something no one else had. That courage and unyielding resolve could carve victory out of despair. And as the distant stars shimmered, cold and distant, the flame of hope burned brighter than ever. The Solak Dominion was not a force to be underestimated. Their pride was as vast as their fleet, and their fury knew no bounds. When the Dauntless struck down their heavy cruiser and tore apart their formations, the Dominion responded with brutal swiftness. Across the battered Erythran fleet, alarms screamed. The enemy unleashed wave after wave of reinforcements, fighters, bombers, and colossal dreadnoughts emerging from jump points like a tidal wave of death. Commander Lysar Venai gripped the edge of the command console, her mandibles clenched, tight. "All hands brace for impact. The Dominion intends to break our line once and for all." The Dauntless was already moving to intercept the oncoming dreadnoughts, its engines roaring like a beast awakened. Captain Mara Thorne's voice was calm but fierce over the comm. "We hold here. No retreat." The battle erupted anew with terrifying intensity. Explosions blossomed like supernovae in the void, and the black backdrop of space was scarred by flashing energy beams and fiery debris. The Dominion's forces struck with a viciousness born of desperation. They would not lose this star system without a savage fight. Lysar watched the enemy's dreadnoughts advance, their massive silhouettes blotting out the star's light. The alien fleet's shields faltered under the relentless barrage. "Shields failing, 40% and dropping," reported the engineer. "We won't last much longer if they break through. Divert power to forward shields and weapons," Lysar ordered. "We'll hold them here or die trying." A sudden chill ran through the command bridge as a new threat appeared on sensors. Fast-moving, sleek ships emerging from the system's asteroid belt. The Dominion's secret strike force. "They're trying to flank us," Joran said grimly. "If they break through our defenses there, they'll cut off our retreat." Lysar's eyes narrowed. "Alert all units. Focus fire on the flankers, no one lets them through." The Dauntless tore through the enemy vanguard, its energy pulses carving destruction with calculated precision. But even the human warship was pushed to its limits. Captain Mara's voice crackled urgently over the comm. "The flankers are more dangerous than anticipated. They're using cloaking tech to strike and vanish. We need to counter them, fast." Lieutenant Samir worked furiously, deploying sensor drones and adaptive countermeasures. "We're trying to track their movement patterns, but they're like shadows. Elusive, deadly." On the Erythran flagship, Lysar sent a desperate signal to the fleet. "Hold the line. We must not break." Her own voice trembled as she whispered, "If we fall here, everything we've fought for dies." Fighters screamed through the void, weaving deadly dogfights with Dominion attackers. Explosions rocked ships. Debris floated like ghosts between the star and the desperate fleet. Suddenly, the flagship shuddered violently. The Dominion had found a breach. Hull breach in Sector 7, an officer shouted. Life support compromised. Lysar struggled to maintain control. Damage control teams to Sector 7. Patch it now or we lose the ship. But even as teams rushed to seal the damage, another explosion rocked the ship. The Dominion had zeroed in, bombarding the flagship relentlessly. Commander, Jorin shouted. The fleet is breaking formation, ships are retreating. No, Lysar yelled. We hold or we die. The human warship surged forward, lasers blazing, shields flickering but unbroken. Mara's voice cut through the chaos. Erythrans, fall back in formation. We're covering your retreat. You live to fight another day. Reluctantly, Lysar ordered, a controlled withdrawal. The fleet pulled back, weaving through asteroid fields and debris fields, fighting every inch as they retreated. Aiden's strike team, freshly returned from the cruiser assault, provided escort with their assault pods, striking down pursuing fighters with ruthless efficiency. Despite the retreat, the Dauntless and its human crew remained defiant. We don't run from a fight, Mara said grimly. We adapt. We survive. Back on the Erythran bridge, Lysar took a moment to breathe, though her body shook with exhaustion and despair. Jorin placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. This isn't the end, Commander. It's a setback. We'll rebuild. We'll fight. Again. Lysar's gaze hardened. We will, but only if the humans stay with us. Their fire is the spark we need to ignite this war. The human fleet signaled readiness to stand by the Erythrans no matter the cost. And as the Dominion forces regrouped for another devastating assault, the combined fleet prepared for the war that would decide the fate of a star system, and perhaps the galaxy itself, because some fights aren't just about survival. They're about fighting for the hope that tomorrow can be better. The aftermath of the shattered line left scars deeper than the battered hulls and scorched engines. The Erythran fleet drifted in fractured formations, nursing wounds both physical and morale. Yet amid the silence that followed the storm, a new fire was kindling, a fierce resolve born of desperation and hope. Commander Lysar Venai stood on the bridge of the flagship Aurelia, staring out at the dim glow of the star system, now a war-torn battlefield. The once vibrant nebula surrounding the system was now smeared with smoke and debris, a grim testament to the battle just fought. Beside her, Jorin Tal's antenna twitched nervously. We lost a lot today. Too much. Lysar's eyes were steady. Loss is inevitable in war. But giving up? That's a choice we refuse to make. Her words resonated through the bridge, bolstering the weary crew. Meanwhile, aboard the human, Warship Dauntless, Captain Mara Thorne convened with her officers, plans and strategies swirling through the holographic displays like the remnants of a storm. Our enemies expect us to break, Mara said, voice steel, but they underestimate the human spirit. We don't just survive when we fight back. Lieutenant Samir nodded, bringing up data streams showing Dominion troop movements. We've spotted an enemy supply convoy approaching the front line. Striking it could cripple their reinforcements. Mara's eyes gleamed with determination. Then we hit them where it hurts. Back on the Aurelia, Lysar sent out a fleet-wide communication. All captains, regroup and prepare for a counterstrike. The Dominion will try to press their advantage, but we will stand as one. The humans have shown us what it means to fight. With unbreakable resolve, we fight together, or we fall alone. As the message spread, a flicker of hope blossomed among the Allied crews. Hours later, under the eerie light of distant stars, the combined fleet set course toward the incoming Dominion supply convoy. A labyrinth of massive cargo vessels guarded by elite cruisers. The Dauntless led the charge, slicing through enemy patrols with surgical precision. Mara's tactics combined human ingenuity with Erythran knowledge, creating unpredictable strikes that left Dominion commanders scrambling. Within the enemy convoy, the defenders bristled with confidence, certain their numerical advantage would crush any attackers. But as the human strike pods infiltrated the formation, explosions blossomed like deadly flowers in the void. Supply ships erupted in fiery blossoms and corridors became death traps as human commandos sabotaged engines and weapons. From the bridge of the flagship, Lysar watched the destruction unfold. "This is what hope looks like," she murmured. But the Dominion was not done. A sudden tremor shook the Aurelia as enemy cruisers launched a surprise counterattack, cutting off the retreat path. "Shields at 30%, the engineer shouted. "They're coming in fast." Lysar's jaw tightened. "Divert all power to defensive arrays. We hold this position." The battle grew brutal, a clash of wills as the combined fleet fought to maintain control of the supply lines. Amid the chaos, Captain Mara rallied her crew with fierce determination. "We don't break," she declared. "We don't falter. We stand as a wall against the darkness." Fighters from the Dauntless engaged in frantic dogfights, weaving through beams and missiles with deadly precision. Lieutenant Samir's voice came through the comm. "Captain, we've disabled the convoy's command vessel. Their formation is breaking." Mara allowed herself a grim smile. "Then it's time to finish this." With a thunderous burst, the Dauntless unleashed a concentrated energy volley, crippling the last of the supply ships. The Dominion forces, battered and confused, began to retreat. Back on the Aurelia, Lysar breathed a sigh of relief as the fleet stabilized. "This victory," she said, voice steady but tired, "is only the beginning." Joran placed a hand on her shoulder. "The humans have rekindled a flame within us. Now it's up to us to keep it burning." Lysar nodded, determination blazing in her eyes. "We will fight, not just for survival, but for the future of our people. Together." As the combined fleet limped back toward friendly space, battered but unbroken, the distant stars gleamed with a fragile promise. The war was far from over, but humanity's roar had awakened something in the galaxy, a defiance that could not be extinguished. The battered fleet returned to the Erythran home system, carrying the scars of countless battles but also a new spark, a glimmer of hope ignited by the humans' unyielding courage. Yet the war was far from over. If anything, the Solak Dominions' fury had only deepened, their hatred burning hotter with every defeat. Commander Lysar Vinay stood on the command bridge of the flagship Aurelia, her mandibles twitching with exhaustion and determination. The system's vast orbital docks bustled with activity. Repair crews worked tirelessly to patch up damaged vessels, while strategists and diplomats crowded war rooms, seeking ways to turn the tide. Beside her, Captain Joran Tal reviewed incoming intelligence. "The Dominion is regrouping faster than we anticipated. Their next move could be catastrophic." Lysar nodded grimly. "We can't just defend. We need a decisive strike." Her thoughts drifted to the Dauntless and its crew, humans whose fierce spirit had rekindled a dying hope in her people. She knew their time was running short. On the Dauntless, Captain Mara Thorne gathered her senior officers once more. The ship was scarred but unbowed, a symbol of human resilience in the heart of alien war. "We've bought the Erythrans time, but that's not enough," Mara said, eyes blazing. "The Dominion's leadership is centralized in a massive fortress on the planet Korath Prime. If we can strike there, we might cripple their command and end this war." Lieutenant Samir's fingers danced across the console. "It's risky. Korath Prime is heavily fortified with orbital defenses and planetary shields." Mara's jaw clenched. "Then we use everything we have, every trick, every ounce of will. We're not just fighting for ourselves anymore. We're fighting for every species the Dominion has crushed." Meanwhile, Lysar sent a fleet-wide transmission. "All hands prepare for Operation Dawnfire. We strike at the heart of the Dominion." Across the fleet, a surge of renewed purpose spread. The journey to Korath Prime was tense and silent. The Allied fleet navigated through dangerous sectors, evading patrols and hostile scanners. Every crew member knew what was at stake. As they approached the planet's orbit, the Dominion's defenses loomed like titanic beasts. Orbital cannons bristling with firepower, shield arrays shimmering with impenetrable light. "We'll have to get past those," Mara said, her voice calm but resolute. The Dauntless took point, its hull shimmering as it activated a newly developed stealth system, an experimental technology that bent light and sensors alike. "Stealth mode engaged," Samir reported. We're ghosts in the void. The fleet followed, weaving through the defense grid like shadows. Suddenly the silence shattered. Warning sirens blared across the Dauntless. Contact! Dominion fleet emerging from the planet's shadow, Samir shouted. They've anticipated us. From the planet's dark side, massive warships surged forth, their engines blazing with lethal intent. Lisar's voice crackled through the comm. Hold formation. Protect the Dauntless. We break through together. The battle erupted in a furious clash of firepower and tactics. The Dominion unleashed everything. Plasma beams, missile barrages, electronic warfare designed to blind and disable. But the humans fought with something beyond technology. Their pilots twisted and turned through the chaos with reckless brilliance, their gunnery accurate and deadly. The Dauntless moved like a predator, striking with devastating energy blasts and slipping away before the enemy could respond. Shields holding at 70%, Samir reported, sweat beading on his brow. But we're drawing heavy fire. Captain, Mara's eyes never wavered. Keep pushing, we're almost there. Below them, Korath Prime's surface was a fortress of steel and fire. A sprawling citadel surrounded by miles of defensive turrets and shield generators. The Dauntless dispatched its assault pods, manned by human and Erythran commandos. Their mission: infiltrate the planetary defenses, disable the shield generators, and open a path for the fleet. Inside the fortress, explosions rocked the corridors as the strike team fought fiercely. Aiden, battle-scarred but unyielding, led his squad through enemy patrols, hacking systems, and planting charges. Shields failing on the surface, Aiden radioed. We've got a window. The Dauntless seized the opportunity, firing concentrated energy beams at the Citadel's core defenses. The planetary shields flickered, then collapsed. The fleet surged forward, breaking through the orbital defenses and raining fire down on Korath Prime. On the command bridge, Lisar allowed herself a rare moment of hope. This is it, the turning point. Joran smiled, his antennae twitching with excitement. We're not just fighting to survive anymore. We're fighting to win. As the combined fleet pressed their advantage, the Dominion forces began to falter. Their command was fractured, their morale broken. And somewhere deep within the ruined citadel, the warlord who had threatened entire species now found himself cornered. The roar from the void, the human warship Dauntless, had become a symbol of defiance and hope. And with one final push, the turning tide of the war surged forward. The air aboard the Dauntless was electric with tension. The human warship, battered but unyielding, now orbited the shattered surface of Korath Prime, the warlord's fortress reduced to rubble beneath the relentless onslaught of the combined fleet. Victory hung just within reach, yet every crew member knew this final battle would demand everything. Captain Mara Thorne stood at the command console, eyes fixed on the live feed from the assault teams flooding the Citadel's interior. Explosions rocked the ground beneath them, lighting the darkened world with fiery blossoms of defiance. Strike teams have engaged the warlord's personal guard, Mara said, voice low but fierce. We have to end this now. The warlord controls the Dominion's last command node here. Take it down and this war ends. Lieutenant Samir's fingers flew over the tactical display, tracking hostile reinforcements pouring into the citadels. Lower levels. They're desperate, but our teams have the upper hand. On the surface, Aiden led his squad through the labyrinthine corridors. Each step echoed with the weight of the galaxy's fate. The warlord's guards were ruthless, but the humans fought with unmatched resolve. We're almost at the command node, Aiden whispered into his comm. Hold on. Back in orbit, Commander Lisar Vaynai and Captain Joran Tal coordinated the fleet's assault. The Dominion's remaining ships, cornered and demoralized, faced a barrage of energy blasts and missile salvos that tore through their formations. This is our moment, Lisar said. We must strike hard and fast. Suddenly a shudder ran through the Dauntless. Sensors flashed warnings. An enemy superweapon buried deep beneath the citadel was powering up. Mara's jaw clenched. They're trying to wipe us out with one last strike. Divert all power to shields. The Dauntless groaned as massive energy waves slammed into its shields. The crew braced, holding firm against the crushing assault. "Hold the line," Mara shouted. "We're not going anywhere." On the ground, Aiden's team reached the command node's core chamber. The warlord himself waited, an imposing figure clad in dark armor, eyes burning with fury and hatred. "You think you can destroy me?" the warlord snarled. "You are nothing but insects beneath my heel." Aiden tightened his grip on his rifle. "Maybe, but even insects can bite." The fight was brutal, a whirlwind of laser fire and close combat. Aiden and his squad fought with every ounce of skill and courage, pushing the warlord back step by step. Above, the Dauntless's shields flickered but held. Captain Mara seized the moment. "Fire the main cannon," she ordered. "Concentrate everything on the citadel." The warship unleashed a colossal beam of pure energy, piercing the fortress's core. The structure trembled, cracks racing across its surface. Inside, the warlord roared in fury, staggering as systems failed around him. Aiden seized the chance, delivering a final decisive strike that brought the warlord crashing down. With the command node destroyed, the Dominion's hold shattered. Their ship ceased fire, withdrawing into the void in disarray. Commander Lysar exhaled, her mandibles quivering. "It's over." Captain Mara allowed herself a rare smile. "No, it's just the beginning." The warlord's defeat marked the end of Dominion tyranny in the sector. The Erythrans and their allies began rebuilding, their shattered world slowly healing under the watchful protection of the humans and their newfound comrades. Lysar approached the Dauntless's bridge as the ships prepared to depart. "You came when we needed you most. The galaxy owes you its gratitude." Mara shook her head. "We didn't come for thanks. We came because no one deserves to face darkness alone." Joran grinned. "The humans taught us to fight not just with weapons, but with heart." Aiden looked out at the stars, feeling the weight of countless lives saved and those lost. "We showed them what it means to never give up," he said softly. As the Dauntless roared to life, slipping back into the vast unknown, its crew carried with them a message that echoed across the galaxy. When darkness threatens to consume the stars, humanity will be the roar in the void, fierce, unyielding, and unstoppable.